Handicapper Steve here, handicapping the racing from Turfway Park here on Saturday. It is the 21st of March, 2026. It's Jeff Ruby Stakes Day from Turfway, and we're going to look at the Jeff Ruby and all the other stakes races on the program. But before I get on to that, remember to follow me on X at Horse Racing Kid 5 for more selections for race courses around the world. And remember to go check out my Louisiana Derby preview video, which will be live very soon. But let's look at the stakes action here from Turfway. It's the big race card of the year for them. Races 7 through 12, so quite a few races to get to. Seventh race from Turfway, it's the Latonia Stakes. It's going for a $250,000 purse. Race for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and upwards. We have a field here, going, field of 7 horses going the 1,700-meter journey, or mile 16th on the main track. Gonna go with the number 5 horse here, warming 5216 for me in the superfecta. 5216 super, top selection of 5 horse warming. This 4-year Philip global campaign here. Grand Motion Trains. John Velasquez comes in to ride this horse. They ran the horse most recently, 24th of January at Gulfstream, mile 70 to PETA in a handicap for 100,000. He finished second by 3/4 length. It was a horse's first start with the Lasix in quite a few minutes. And she ran terrifically. She sat back early. She swung out wide late. She had a great turn of foot. She just missed. Came back with an 82 buyer. That was the best out of her most recent runs, actually career best. Refreshing here, a little tougher competition, but I think going the 2 turns drawn very well. I think she could find a trip to win. Ran 2 back on the dirt in Del Mar, 1 mile in the Bayacoa. She didn't do a lot of running. She finished 7 by 18.5 lengths that day, and she stalked just never quick enough. Hope Road really ran terrifically. This horse just wasn't getting to her. But she ran prior to that Santino on the turf course a mile in the autumn miss. Went about 1 3/4 lengths. Again, not the best beginnings that day. It was a little bit wide, but she flew home clear in the lane. 78 buyer, not the best of her career, but still a very good run. And then the John C. Harris Santino 6.5 down the hillside turf course finished third by 3/4 length that day. Horrible beginning, but she settled well. Those routing horses going 6.5 down the hillside turf course do very well. She ran very well. She just missed late in the finishing third by 3/4 length, but she ran her heart out. If you look at some of her races over this past summer, she wasn't running bad at all against some tough competition. For an okay fifth in the Bourbonette Oaks, came back from the Lake Classic where she ran an okay race where she had to basically shut off into that clubhouse turn. But she's refreshing here. She's training nicely. At 5-1, I'm going to give her a shot on the ticket. I think the 2 are stylish Sue for Irad and Joe Sharp one also. Didn't do a lot of running in the wintergreen here at Turfway going a mile about 3 weeks ago, where it's been 7 by 24 lengths, and she just had nothing from a tracking trip. It was her first start coming up north, so maybe she needed the race to get accustomed to the climate. She's been here now since the last race. I just think she should just run a little bit better. She ran Mayor Krantz Memorial prior to that, the fairgrounds over the mile 16th in January. We finished 7 by 7 1/4 lengths, where she was just wide again, just kind of yielding. A very tough race. And the Cardinal, again, a very tough race at Churchill in the fall. This race is not nearly as tough as some of those other races. She's drawn very well. She has some forwardly pumped to do well. I'm going to give her a shot at 92. This is pick 6 begins with this race. So let's use her there. 27 all stakes pick 6, so hopefully you play it. But to recap my selection for the 7 from Turfway, it's Latonia. Going to take the 5 horse warming. Give kudos to the 2 horse stylish Sue. 5-2-1-6 super. 5-2 in the multi race. The 8th event's now from Turfway. It's the Rushaway Stakes. It's a $250,000 purse going for 3-year-olds here. We have a field of 8 horses going 1,700 meters, or a mile 1/16th in the Rushaway. I'm going to go with the 5 horse Valiant. It's top selection. 5184 for me in the superfecta. 5184 super. Top selection 5 horse Valiant. This 3-year-old colt by Into the Mischief. Brad Cox trains. I Rider Choose Jr. gets the mount. Ran the horse most recently in the Leonidas at Turfway at mile on the 17th of January. And finished 4th by 4 lengths that day. She just kind of stalked that day. They went very slow to 3/4 that day, and she just couldn't quicken up off of those times. The winner took off clear. This horse just, when they had that 3/4 breather, it wasn't to her liking. I think hopefully if they keep the forward momentum going, I think that he could find a trip to win it. Like I said, just don't slow it down mid-race like harness times. Ran a Turfway prior to that, a mile and off 6-2. First time winners, winning by 1 3/4 lengths from a tracking trip. He was drifting the lane, but he flew home clear. They ran a very fast 3/4. It really suited him well. A good run there. And then in Indiana on the dirt, 1 mile on the main special, went by 5 1/4 lengths. A race he was on the front end, but he had a bit of a 3/4 time breather, but he still flew home clear. Very good driving victory. He's definitely improved with every single race. A mid 70 buyer could definitely win here. I'll give him a shot on the ticket. I think the one horse JJ Gray for Kenneth McPeak and Joel could win also. He ran at the fairgrounds about earlier in the month, at mile 70 and ops 50. First start since October. He won by 4 lengths, and he was cranked that day. He stalked, he got the lead, he flew home clear, 87 buyer. That was quite good. Biggest question with him is, can he run onto Pete? I think he can. He broke his main on the 2nd of August at Colonial on the turf quite impressively to main option 50. Went by 2 lengths from a wide trip. He really came home clear. Came back to running the Kentucky Downs after that, where he just didn't do a lot of running. I don't know if he really liked that Kentucky Downs course. And then came back in a very tough Bourbon after that, where he just saw some very tough competition. Race not nearly as tough. Really improved from his 2-year-old campaign to his 3-year-old campaign. 4-1. Let's use him on the ticket. But to recap my selection for the 8th from Turfway, now it's the Rushaway. Going to take the 5 horse Valiant. Give kudos to the 1 horse JJ Gray. 5184 Super, 5-1 in the multi race. Let's get to the 9th race from Turfway. Hopefully, I don't lose my voice. It's been going all day. I think I'm getting sick, but hopefully not. But the 9th race from Turfway, it's the Animal Kingdom Stakes. It's going for a $250,000 purse race for 3-year-olds here. We have a field of 8 horses going 1,200 meters or 6 furlongs in the Animal Kingdom. Best to be remembered by way of the 2011, what was that race? The Kentucky Derby. Went on to win the Dubai World Cup, and everybody forgets his massive run in the first cut mile. What was that, 2012 maybe at Santa Anita? I can't remember, but he ran terrifically in defeat. But my top selection in this year's Animal Kingdom, I'm going to go with the number 8 horse, the number 8 horse who is hometown bound, 8734 for me in the superfecta. 8734 super, top selection, 8 horse hometown bound. This 3-year-old Colt Matoli here, Jorge Duarte Jr. trains. Victor Carrasco gets the mount. Ran the horse most recently 3rd January here at Turfway, 6.5, and the Turfway preview, and he won by 1/4 lengths, and he broke like a quarter horse. He was on the front end. Nobody was stopping him. He set some good fractions, coming home with a 76 buyer. Not as impressive as his maiden race that day, but he still ran terrifically. He's coming here between races. Duarte 15% off of long benches shouldn't be a problem. I think this horse should really run a good race. Jorge Duarte doesn't run a lot of horses on the Tapeta, but when he does, his horses run very well, 45%. So just keep that in mind in a very small offering. But this horse ran on debut at Laurel back on the 8th of November. 6 furlongs mud in main special weight, winning by 3 lengths. He was on the front end. He was a little bit wide, but he flew home clear. That was a very good race on debut. Since his most recent race, he's training nicely here on the Tapeta at Turfway. 5 furlongs in 102 and 1/5 of a second, and 5-furlong workout, 101 flat. Refreshing here. Bred for speed, has speed here. I think he's could run a good race. 7 horse outfielder for Johnny B and Wesley could get a trip also. He ran most recently the Breed Cup Juvenile Turf at Del Mar over the mile back in October, where he finished 14th by 13 lengths. He left from the inside to get good position. He was dueling on the front end, but then he just couldn't keep the 2 turns. It was his first start routing, and I just don't think it was the right spot for him. I do think coming here off the bench to a sprinting trip, it's really going to be a better spot for him. He ran an allowance race prior to that, Keelan going 6th, 4th of October, and they needed a race for him going into the Breeders' Cup. They found one. He won by 2 lengths, 60 cents to the dollar. It was a very good run for him that day on the front end. And then a Deauville and France, 6 furlongs in the Group 1 free morning. He finished 4th by 4 3/4 lengths. He didn't break so well. It was quarter horse to the front end, which he got to the front end, but then just didn't quicken up. If the race was 5, he could have made the races interesting late, but that final furlong really just, you saw a tired horse there. He won a debut back in May at Churchill, going 5 furlongs on the turf course, though, quite nicely. He's refreshing here, has some speed into him. He probably doesn't even eat the front end. I think at 2-1, he could definitely win. I'll use him on the ticket. Even the other award horse, Longshoreman, Wesley's probably going to scratch one of them. It seems like he always scratches one of them. But, this horse won on his second outing at Churchill quite nicely back in June. Came back to a massive place in the Belmont Futurity after that. He's another horse off the bench. It wouldn't surprise me. I'll give him a piece of it on the late pick 4 that begins with his race. But to recap my selection for the 9th from Turfway, it is the Animal Kingdom. I'm going to take the 8-horse hometown bound, give kudos to the 7-horse outfielder and the 3-horse longshoreman. 8-7-3-4 super, 8-7-3 in the multi race to the 10th race. The 10th race from Turfway, it is the Kentucky Cup Classic. It's a grade 3 event going for a $300,000 purse race for 4-year-olds and upwards. We have a field here of 9 horses going 1,800 meters or a mile and an eighth in the Kentucky Cup Classic. Years ago, we used to go back, probably the last Kentucky Cup they had was maybe 2011, 2010. It used to be a big day when Turfway had the fall September meeting. And, you had the Kentucky Cup Juvenile, you had the Kentucky Cup Classic, the Sprint. It was just some good races and good Breeders' Cup prep races. Quite a few horses ran out of these races, ran decently in the Breeders' Cup races. If I'm not mistaken, Point Given might even prep race in the Juvenile to win one of the races as a 2-year-old, or he came back maybe as a 3-year-old to win after the no, I can't remember if he won after the Travers, but just in general, the Kentucky Cup Classic races were very good in the day. In modern days, it's still a good race. It just doesn't have the goodness of what they had to a couple years ago or many years ago. With that being said, my top selection this year's Kentucky Cup Classic, I'm going to go with the 2-horse Utah Beach, 2-5-7-1 for me in the superfecta. 2571 Super, top selection 2-horse, Utah Beach is 6-year-old gelding here by English Channel. Brendan Walsh trains. Vincent Chiminade gets the mount. Ran the horse most recently in the Sycamore Keeneland, a mile and a half on the 10th of October, and he finished third by 2 lengths. He sat on the front end. He yielded out of it. He just couldn't keep up. Deceivo really ran a terrific race. I do think this horse coming back in trip for the first time in quite a few minutes back to Kentucky, back to Turfway. I think he could find a trip to win. He's only run here 3 times in the past, but he's one victor to his name locally. But like I said, he always runs these good races locally. Two back in the Kentucky Cup Classic, or Kentucky Turf Cup at Kentucky Downs, a mile and a half on the 6th of September. Finished ninth by 10 1/4 lengths that day, and I just don't think he was comfortable that day. He was between horses, and he just wasn't really himself there. Prior to then, the Sword Dancer at Saratoga in the mile and a half finished fourth by 6 1/4 lengths. He was very wide that day. He moved a little bit late, but he still needs something more. And then the Shorely Wood, he just never really ran at Churchill, but he ran terrifically in a great spring campaign last year. Came back to run a massive fourth in this race last year with Frankie Dettori up. Came back to run in the Elkhorn after that Keeneland going mile and a half where he won by a head with a 99 buyer and ran a career best 100 buyer after that in the Louisville Stakes at Churchill in the mile and a half, won it by 1 1/4 lengths. He really ran terrifically. That was a very, very good run. He's back to this turf course. I like that he has time between races and the new care, Brendan Walsh. I'm going to give him a shot on the ticket. I think the 5-horse here, who is Willie Dees for Johnny B and Mike Maker, can win also. He ran most recently in Louisiana Stakes at Fairgrounds with the mile 16th of January. We finished fourth by 2 3/4 lengths, where he just couldn't catch the winner. He really ran terrifically. This horse just widened just a little bit flat. I thought in the tinsel prior to the mile and eighth at Oaklawn, he ran a massive second where he just got caught by Rattle and Roll. But this horse, with that 98 bar, he didn't go down without a fight. A good race there. And then he ran horribly in the Lucas Classic at a mile and eighth at Churchill, finishing seventh by 12 1/4 lengths that day. He just completely missed the mark. But if you go by the race before, behind Banishing in the Charlestown Classic, he gained a lot on that bull ring track, finishing second by 2 1/4 lengths. If the race was maybe a standard mile and the eighth around 2 turns, he could have really made the race interesting late, but he was just running around turns all the time, and then prior to that, winning the Schaefer Memorial, winning at Saratoga Belmont Stakes weekend. Those were some very good runs. Biggest question with him today will be coming to the Tapeta for the first time. I think he can handle it. And I do too. Let's use him in that pick 4 here. And even the 7-horse Endlessly has won since the El Camino Real Derby of 2024 at Golden Gate. Since then, he's just run some, or excuse me, hasn't won since the Jeff Ruby Stakes after the El Camino Derby race. I came in 2024. Since then, if you look at some of his races in 2024, even 2025, those were some tough editions of races he was running in. Ran the Manhattan, the American, Belmont Derby, tough races. And, he's coming here off some decent runs with decent buyers, just not getting lucky. If he gets lucky here today, I think he wins 12-1. Let's give him a shot on the ticket. I think he has hidden form that could do wonders here. But to recount my selection for the 10th run Turfway now, it's Kentucky Cup Classic. I'm going to take the 2-horse Utah Beach. Give kudos to the 5-horse Willie Dees and the 7-horse Endlessly. Where are we? 2571 Super, 257 in the multi-race. Heading over to the 11th race now from Turfway. It is the Bourbonette Oaks. It's going for a purse of $300,000. Races for 3-year-old fillies. A dozen horses are going 1,700 meters or mile 16th on the main track. I'm going to go take the number 9 horse here, Lovely Gray. 9815 for me in the superfecta. 9815 super. Top section 9 horse, Lovely Gray. 3-year-old filly by Vacoma. Kesley Danner trained this one. Joel Rosario gets the mount. Ran the horse most recently a month month ago at Turfway, a mile in the Cincinnati Trophy, and she finished second by 2 3/4 lengths. She sat mid-pack most of the race, was a little bit wide late, but she was gaining a lot of ground. She missed in the feed, but she came home with a 78 bar that could do wonders here today. She'll see a strong pace to close up into, and I think, getting a good finishing rider, Rosario up, I think this horse sitting on a very good run. Two back at Turfway, a mile and a half, 6-2 Claimer back 22nd of January. She finished third by 3/4 length. I don't know what it is recently with Turfway having those 3/4 breathers like you would see at Yonkers on a Monday night, but that race had a 3/4 breather where the winner resist really ran terrifically to get the job done there from a very close to the pace. She wasn't setting the pace, but she was on the pace. This horse was way out of it. She moved late, but she needed that stronger pace to close up into early on. That time really cost her there. The 3/4 breathers, and then prior to that, the Salima at Laurel for the mile 16, she finished 6 by 7 3/4 lengths. She was just wide. Just a little bit flat that day. You can say the race before Kentucky Downs also going 6.5. I don't think she really handled Kentucky Downs. She broke her man at Colonial quite nicely in August with a 57 buyer come from mid-pack. She's not going to be on the front end. She's going to come from mid-pack. Like I said, I think the way the race should suit up with some speed on the front end, as long as they don't have a 3/4 breather like you see in Yonkers, I think at 6-1 she could get a piece of it. I think the 8 horse Bless Her, a horse that's going to be slightly closer to the pace for Graham Motion and Johnny V could find a piece also. She won at Gulfstream going mile 16th on Torpedo quite nicely about 8 weeks ago. One of my 6 3/4 lengths come from the back of the pack. I thought she was a little bit wide, but she really came home clear. A race before that on debut at Laurel, she was very, very troubled that day. She had a very troubled trip, which cost her. She was gaining like an express train. If she had a clearer trip, she could have possibly won, but she ran her heart out. And then prior to that, and then after that, Tampa going mile 16, she finished 6 by 8 lengths, where she didn't get out of the gate so clearly, and she was just a little bit wide that day. But she's training well in Palm Meadows on the turf since her most recent race. At 8-1, I think she could show ability to win here. And even though the one horse, Res Blendens, for Paulo Lobo and Burgos here, won the Cincinnati Trophy on the front end quite nicely with an 84 buyer, another 3/4 breather there. And then won a main special here going mile 16th back in January by 6 lengths again, 3/4 breather, very good race. Both those races had very, this horse getting everything her own way in the front end. From the inside, she's probably going to get to the front end. Let's see how far her speed holds up. It wouldn't surprise me if she wins here. Her buyers have been definitely up to par to get a piece of it. I'll use run that late pick 4 or pick 6 ticket. But to recap my selection for the 11th now for Turfway, it's Bourbonette Oaks. Going to take the 9 horse Lovely Gray, 9815 Super, 981 in the multi race. Let's get to the future 12th race now. 12th race from Turfway. It is the Jeff Ruby Stakes. It's a grade 3 event going for a $777,000 purse. Races for 3-year-olds here. Field 12 horses going the distance of ground of 1,800 meters or a mile and an eighth in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, formerly known as the Spiral, formerly known as the Lane's End Stakes, formerly known as GalleryFurniture.com Stakes, formerly known as this race had many names in its history. I'm going to go with the number 3 horse, Baytown Dreamer as a top selection. I might be a dreamer picking this horse here, but I like the way he's been running as recently. I'm going to go 3, 6, 11, 10 in the superfecta. 3, 6, 11, 10 super. Top selection 3 horse Baytown Dreamer. This 3 called by Mendelssohn here. Paul McEntry trained this one. Orlando Bocachica gets the bounce. They ran the horse most recently, 21st January Turfway, mile 16th and the John Taglin Memorial, and she finished 4th by 3 1/4 lengths that day. He stopped all the way around the race course. I thought he just needs something more late. Again, 3/4 breather, which is on this track, which is a little bit weirder at times. He just couldn't get there, a little bit flat, but he improved off his most recent run. He's running buyers that definitely could keep him up with some of these horses here. I think he'll be forwardly paced from where he's drawn, and it wouldn't surprise me if you see him running at the end if he has that pace to close up into. But, he ran prior to in the Southwest at Oklahoma with mile 16th, where he just had a wide trip, which cost him. He finished 11 by 29 lengths. He was wide throughout, and he just stopped that day. It wasn't his day to win. And then he ran okay in the Smarty Jones prior to that on the mile 16th at Oakland in early January, finishing 3rd by 5 1/4 lengths. He sat back early. He moved a little bit late again. I thought he needed something more late. But, again, seen worse race from him. And then he ran at Keelan prior to that on turf course, mile 16th in the Lowndes race, not too well, finishing 7 by 11 1/4 lengths. He's breaking 10 of 10. The best thing for him to do was to leave on the front end. They did just that, but he just ran a little bit too fast on the front end. 22-second quarters early on, and really just couldn't keep up late that day. The close got to him. And then he ran in the Pilgrim Piles prior to that, where he finished 9th by 5 1/4 lengths that day, where he just kind of yielded. If they let him get a good close to the front end, just get a good tracking trip, I think you could see him running at the end. Like I said, I think he's running good buyer numbers as recently that could keep him up with some of these horses. He's training well on his local track. Gonna give him a shot here at 31. Like I said, it might be a dreamer picking him, but I think the six horse Medici for Dick Mandela and Mirko Demero can win also. He's not Triple Crown nominated here, but if he wins today, wouldn't be surprised if they skip the Derby and run something like the American Turf after that, or even the Belmont Derby after that. But this horse ran the Pasadena about a month ago at Santini over the mile on the turf course where he finished second by a nose. He left from an outside gate to get good position, which he did again, and then he just got caught by Greenwich Village, the Baffert trained horse who ran terrifically. This horse he got nailed at the wire, but he ran his heart out. He ran prior to another wide trip at Santino at a main special where he won by half a length that day, wide throughout, but he really flew home cleared late. And then at Del Mar, mile eighth in the main special way back in late November. Plutarch ran terrifically, was next start winner for Bob Baffert. His horse was drawn in the parking lot that day. He stalked, he got close to the front end, then he just kind of yielded. I think the wide poster got to him. If you look at all his races, he's either breaking 9 of 9, 10 of 10, 12 of 12, 11 of 11. Today he finally gets a good poster. 6 of 12 isn't half bad. Should be forwardly paced here today. He's training well with Tapita at Santina and on the dirt at Santina. 6 to 1. If he could travel across country, I think he has a piece to get a good shot to get a piece fit. I'm going to use him on the ticket. I think the 11 horse Star Contrast for Kimura and McCarthy can win also another Southern California shipper. Won the Eddie Logan in January at Santino, quite impressive by 2.25 lengths from the 87 buyer. He ran massively prior to that in the Bruce Cup Juvenile Turf at 58 to 1, where he plays. If he had a better trip in the stretch, he probably would have won by open lengths, but Gastad really had that easier trip than this horse. And then he wins Zuma Beach prior to that quite nicely at Santino. He's done everything right. He's running some very fast buyers here. 11 or 12, not the ideal post draw, but I could see him running well late. 5-2, crap price. I'll use him on the late pick 4 to end it off here. And even the 10 horse Argos for Brad Cox and Luan Machado hasn't won since the Summer Stakes of Woodbine, where he won by a head closing up from mid pack. He came back to Brewer's Cup after that, where he just had a very trouble trip in traffic. And then in the Colonel Liam prior to that, or after that, he just was one, just a little bit flat. He's getting blinkers on. He's training well on this track. 6 to 1 in a very wide open race. Let's use him in this pick 6 to end it off to find a price here. I think this is going to be a race you're going to find a price in. So watch out for this one. But to recount my selection for the 12th from Turfway, it's Jeff Ruby Stakes. Going to take the 3 horse Baytown Dreamer. Again, might be a dreamer picking this horse. We're going to give kudos to the 6 horse Medici, the 11 horse Star Contracts, and the 10 horse Argos. It's 3, 6, 11, 10 super, 3, 6, 11, 10 in the pick 6 multi-race wager, whatever we decide to play. With that being said, good luck to all. Please follow me on X at Horse Racing Kid 5, and remember to join me today for my Louisiana Derby preview. Good luck, everybody.